Hey, and thanks for coming back to Duality of Wrestling's AEW Forbidden Door 2026 review, part two. We had just finished up part one with the discussion of everything leading up to and including the Tekla versus Starlight Kid AEW Women's World Championship match. So if you haven't had a chance to go through that yet, I highly recommend checking out part one first, going through the analysis of all the earlier matches on the card we did, as well as the 0 hour matches. And let's now move forward. We're going to check out Cope and Cage defending their AEW World Tag Team Championships against the Dogs. Why the Dogs? And I think, given the way the match laid out and ended, it might answer my question. But my preference on a Forbidden Door pay per view would be for Cope and Cage to be defending these titles against an international team, a CMLL team, an NJPW team, whoever was available and would work an agreement to do Forbidden Door. This, show generally works better as this kind of showcase style match with talent we don't normally see. So I kind of would have liked to have seen that, but failing that, I would have loved to have seen maybe the Ops, some of the other Death Riders guys. Like, the idea that Claudio is not regularly on shows is baffling to me. Maybe even LFI, we pushed Roosh a lot lately, so having him on the show would make a semblance of sense. I also think that the team that really deserves a little bit more flowers here and deserves much more TV time than they're getting currently is the Hurt Syndicate. These guys were booked really, really well and in top end storylines since they debuted in AEW. They were booked really strong during their tag team championship run. So I'm not totally sure why they're getting very sparse TV matches at the moment and why they're not really being booked in storylines of any significance at the moment. But I would have loved to have seen that as the match here. And maybe we get there at some point, but the reason why I think the Dogs eventually worked is the ending of this match, which I'll get to in a second. But I do want to touch on the really fun spot in this match, which was the double spear war, whatever you want to call it, between Cope and Clark Connors, who, for my money, does the best spear in the business currently. So the idea that you'd have a spear versus spear spot here totally makes sense. The rest of the match was just fine. It was solid, if unspectacular, but it was really more about leading us to the end, which was David Finlay laying out one of the champs with a shillelagh when the ref took a bump. We were about to see the other, member of Cope and Cage get laid out when the lights go out, come back on, and we see, the Bang Bang Gang at the top of the stage doing their entrance and really stoked. Lights go back out again. We come back in, and we have the return of King Switch himself. Switchblade Jay White, who has missed well over a year due to a significant injury, comes back, lays out David Finlay with a Blade Runner, and allowing Cope and Cage to retain their championships after a spear. And man, I love this. And I say that as not even being, the staunchest Jay White proponent. I like the guy, maybe not as much as some of the other louder voices on the interwebs, but I like him. I know he was a very coveted free agent when he came over from NJPW. He even got to main event a pay-per-view with MJF in a title defense relatively soon after coming over. So he obviously is a pretty big time player, but health has not always cooperated with that for Jay White. So I really, really hope when he comes, now that he's back, he's able to capitalize on a lot of that potential we saw. He's able to stay healthy and be around for quite some time. And I will say, I also love that they brought him back in this fashion because think back all the way to when Jay White was last with us. That was when he was assisting Adam Copeland chasing John Moxley and the Death Riders for the AEW World Championship. That is how long ago that was. It is pre-Dynasty of 2025. So that's how long it's been since we've seen Switchblade Jay White. So I love that not only, is he back, but that they also connected that red thread from the last time we saw him, because it makes it feel like a very, cohesive character. And that's just smart writing and storytelling. So great job, AEW, in that respect. Really well done. We even teased some tension between Jay White and Christian Cage, which I also think makes a lot of sense. It could make for a really fun and interesting program. So yeah, let's see where that plays out. So I liked where this got to. This really just seemed like a mechanism to get Jay White back in a prominent area on the pay-per-view. Could not be happier about it. Never expected the Dogs to win in the first place, so no issue with that overshadowing this match. So great Love that you're back, Jay White. Let's get it. That brings us to the first of our triple main events of the evening, which is Mercedes Moné facing off against Maya World in the finals of the Women's Owen Hart Foundation tournament. And some of the criticism that has been lobbed AEW's way, and I think very rightfully so, in recent years, is that when their plans are forced to change, they don't always pivot well. Sometimes they put things in holding patterns. Sometimes they run stories that don't really make a lot of sense from where they were going. Sometimes they just drop people in the creative that was scheduled for others, which I don't particularly love at all. And I think that was very evident here. Obviously, the reports that have come out since some of these shifts were made was that originally it was going to be either Toni Storm as the first choice, or when she was unavailable, Willow Nightingale these were going to be the original choices to win the Owen Hart bracket on the women's side. They both weren't available, one due to injury, one due to potentially a pregnancy, but either way, neither were available. That led us pivoting to bringing Mercedes back, probably sooner than anticipated because she was brought in as a wild card, which was not originally in the brackets. So that makes us think that she was never supposed to be a part of this tournament. And then Maya World coming in, she was a replacement for Suri, so she was not supposed to be here either. So we had two finalists who were never supposed to be in this bracket in the first place. Um, and obviously, Mercedes Moné is one of the best wrestlers in the world, so there's not really a big issue there. My issue with her is that, again, she won last year's tournament, so I don't love her getting to this point in this tournament unless you are having her lose. And I didn't want Maya World to be the one that topples her. She hasn't been pushed enough as a prominent single star for her to have the cachet and gravitas to, have the women's main event slot at All In Wembley. Don't think she's going to be someone that sells tickets on her own. Um, and I do feel a little bit icky and uncomfortable about the idea that Maya is only getting her first significant singles push after the unfortunate passing of her brother pretty recently. And I don't know that there's a correlation there. I would hate to speculate if that's the case. It doesn't jive with what I know about AEW from an ethics and morality standpoint, but something about it just feels uncomfortable to me that a wrestler would lose a close family member to them and then immediately get a significant singles push. I just I don't like it, especially when it comes out of nowhere like that. It feels uncomfortable. Um, I will also say this match had some missteps that to me showed Maya World is not quite ready for the big time and there's the spotlight that was forced upon her by these pivots. But I'll start by giving her a little bit of credit and even AEW's booking a little bit of credit, even though it's not what I would have done. The crowd was very hot for Maya World. They were really into her. She had a lot of chance in the early part and throughout this match against Mercedes, obviously very well over. So it is great that she's getting over. Hopefully that leads over time to her, having a larger role carved out within the women's division. And she hit some really nice spots too. Her moonsault inside the ring was very crisp. Her um, very unique spot of the sort of Scott Hall throwback slam, fall away slam, whatever you want to call it. I used to call it the razor toss back. I didn't have a good name for it. I was a kid, whatever. But she did this into sort of a bridging suplex that she would hit a trio of before tossing Mercedes out of the ring in that same fashion. And I thought that was fairly innovative. I really enjoyed that. Then she also hit a swanton inside the ring that was super crisp, super athletic looking. Really, really looked like a great use of that move for her. But again, as I mentioned, there were a lot of missteps in this match. You had a power bomb spot that was supposed to go into the corners where Mercedes was having issues lifting Maya World. I don't know if that was due to the weight distribution on Maya's part or Mercedes just couldn't get her up multiple times, but we had to shift into Mercedes hitting a running sunset flip power bomb into those turnbuckles. Um, so that was an area that definitely sort of didn't work. Um, we had a partial botch by Maya on the double jump moonsault onto the ropes from the floor. Maya couldn't stick the second jump aspect of it and had to pivot there a little bit, and that didn't look really good. Again, her moonsault back in the ring was better, but that one didn't. The first attempt didn't land. And then the ending sequence didn't look very smooth. You had a cutthroat backstabber that was supposed to transition with a float over into the statement maker, which is how the match eventually ended. But The positioning between the two of them wasn't right for an easy float over. Sort of showed there were some chemistry issues between Mercedes and Maya here. Again, don't know who would want to say would be at fault for that. I'm a lay person, can't really speak to it, but all in all, it looked like it could have been done better. And to me, it spoke to that Maya wasn't ready for this positioning, especially given that Mercedes is very regularly known to be somebody that can get the best out of everybody she's on the card with and always make them look like $1,000,000. That didn't happen here, unfortunately. So I think this is just a case of Maya being pushed too hard, too fast before she was ready. Um, Post match, we got a promo with Athena afterwards, basically shitting on Maya World losing in this matchup and saying she's not ready and not really the it girl as she claims. This may lead eventually to a more prominent match in Ring of Honor. I know there's been talk about Ring of Honor transitioning the championship to Maya World from Athena here. I wouldn't particularly love that because, again, I don't think that Maya has been pushed as a main event talent long enough for her to end a multi-year world championship reign like we've seen from Athena. But that's a discussion for another time. But now we are officially locked in for All In for Tekla defending the AEW Women's World Championship against Mercedes Moné. Heel versus heel match. Don't know how that's gonna to play out very well. I don't know how that feud's gonna work. Um, they're the two most prominent women actively on the roster, so I'm not sure you could do anything better from a business and ticket sales standpoint. But from a storytelling standpoint, I'm very hesitant about where this is going to go narratively, and uh, we'll see. Heel versus heel matchups are very tricky to book, and you're booking one at your biggest show of the year, so fingers crossed it lands well. Second of our three main events for the evening saw Team DC MJF, comprised of MJF and members of the Don Callis family, taking on Team Conglomeration and Darby Allin and Konosuke Takeshita. So let's start with the fact that at the preamble to this match, Justin Roberts referred to this as the Death's Door cage match. Um, I am here for that. I love that name. I think it's badass. If this is a recurring match, they do at Forbidden Door going forward, assuming Forbidden Door continues to be a recurring yearly pay per view. I love the idea. We're already getting at Forbidden Door a long term number one contender established. Why not do the same thing with shorter term number one contenders? You've got the Beach Break Dynamite that's significant right after this show, and then you have Redemption as a pay per view in between All In and Forbidden Door as a bridge show. So you're gonna need obviously a world title defense at least one of those. So why not establish contendership for both of those here? Long term and short term storytelling, I think, can work in conjunction and allow for a lot more creative freedom, and I like that. They executed it here really well. So I hope they continue to do that going forward. I like the idea. Um, we also had all of Team DC MJF wearing those nonsensical MJF and Don Callis t-shirts, which was just fun. This match, showcased a lot of the burgeoning feud that continues to bubble with MJF and Andrade El Idolo, which the fans really took to, and I think they're really going to eat up when we execute that. So love that that's being leaned into as much as possible. We had the first backpack opened up on the conglomeration side, which they all said we're going to have unique weapons. And they all did. The first one opened, had an OG Nintendo Entertainment System in the first one. Now, I know the conglomeration sort of has the 80s sitcom themed entrance video and lean into that a little bit. So, them using an OG Nintendo as a weapon makes perfect sense. They immediately transitioned it into using the cords on the controllers to clothesline Kyle Fletcher, and those controllers stayed wrapped around Fleddy's neck for a good minute or two. Just a really fun visual, and I love that they used an old school Nintendo as a weapon. The gamer nerd in me, my heart sings at that, so love it. We also saw a brutal flipping face bump on a back body drop from Darby Allin onto Mark Briscoe's container or backpack of weapons contents, which was thumbtacks. And that just immediately made me think back to Mick Foley versus Triple H in 2001, I believe it was, where Foley took the pedigree spot into Thumbtacks. And I believe the line he used was, I could lose an eye, but think of the pop. And that sort of described the hesitation around taking a pedigree into it. And they eventually did that spot and it looked vicious. And this one looked similarly vicious. You had, a lot of rotational momentum being done here from the back body drop. Darby took it straight in the face, and you could have easily have seen Tax getting lodged anywhere on that man's face. Darby is beyond well known for his willingness to do crazy shit, and that's very much what we saw throughout this match. Um, Always a willingness to take whatever bump is necessary to sell, the significant brawling potential and how the lengths he'll go to personally to win a match and win a feud. And this was right in line with that. Hopefully, no facial damage there for Darby. Didn't look like there was any, so we looked good, but that was a brutal looking spot. We had then MJF push brooming all of the Tax out right afterwards in a callback to the Texas Death Match he had with Hangman Page at Revolution. I'll go back to what I said there. Totally fits his character. Wants to, as a heel, take away things the fans are excited about. Wants to take away any non-wrestling advantage someone might have over him. So absolutely love him doing that. Totally fits the kind of character he is. We also had Orange Cassidy unveiling what was in his backpack, which was a plastic bag full of oranges and orange slices that were cut up with a giant "Good luck tonight" note written from Willow Nightingale, which, mom sending the kids off to school or sports with orange slices just totally fits really well with the aesthetic and how the conglomeration are booked. I really like that. Really fits their dynamic quite well. And that led us into a spot with those oranges where Kyle Fletcher, who had been busted open, was held while you had juice from those oranges squeezed in and citric acid getting into those wounds. And man, that must hurt. It looked for a great visual, and that must really sting. Kyle Fletcher was also involved in another memorable spot where he's getting into it with Takeshita, and Okada comes in, and Fletcher is yelling, save me," at Okada before both of them get double German suplexed by Takeshita, who got really good height on both of those guys. So really impressive. He was able to get the kind of air on two men that he got. Great work by all three of those guys there to make that look good. Because I have seen that look not good before. You had a great callback on commentary as well, noting how Kevin Knight took Darby out of the Continental Classic last year by getting the win over him with a Van Terminator coast to coast, however you want to call it, type move. And they did that same move again here. You had Jake Doyle hold up the chair. You had Kevin Knight jump over with the across the ring Van Terminator onto Darby Allin, who took it like a pro. Really made Kevin Knight look very dangerous and like he has sort of something over Darby Allin, which is great. It really continues to help elevate Kevin Knight to that next tier of stardom, which is really what they want to do. Tony Khan recently called Kevin Knight one of the new pillars of AEW. So yeah, great work in continuing to elevate Kevin Knight. We had a hockey bag early in the match that Roddy Strong hit some of Team DC MJF with. Later on in that match, that bag is opened by the heels, and we find out that inside that bag is none other than Blackheart, drugged up Gollum, Leo Rush. And I gotta say, I was super skeptical of this gimmick when it debuted. I vocally was like, this is weird. He looks interesting, but it looks weird. I'm not sure this will do anything for him. I was wrong. Totally wrong. The crowd is super into Leo Rush. They were hot for him being the reveal here. He used his maneuverability to make himself look great and avoid a lot of the heel work that was going on. Just fantastic. Eventually, they put him back in the hockey bag, the heels do, and chained it shut. Oh, just so fun. Like, wrestling can be serious, can be emotionally draining, but sometimes it's just goofy and fun too. And this had that about it. But then going back to, how vicious wrestling can be, the next main spot in this match was a ridiculous Blue Thunder bomb from Takeshita to Kyle Fletcher on the outside, through multiple tables. Yikes. They got such height on this Blue Thunder bomb that both these guys went through. It just looked incredible. These are two of the best wrestlers in the world. No surprise that they can make a spot look great, but it looked exceptional. Really well done to both guys. Kevin Knight tried to open a bag of weapons after climbing the cage to get away from Darby Allin. There was some kind of incendiary device that Darby Allin, they said, had booby trapped that backpack, so that explodes. Knight falls off the cage through multiple tables. It's a fun spot that, again, shows how wild Darby Allin is. Kevin Knight clearly willing to go to some lengths himself to put this angle over. Good for him on doing it. This match just had everything. It had fun. It had risk. It had brutality. It had comedy. It had storyline advancement. Loved it. We even got, Andrade was so over with this crowd, we even got a massive "take your pants off" chant to Andrade, which, oh man, just contrast this to how not over Andrade was when he was booked in his last WWE run, even his last AEW run. Even think back to the horrible booking that was the Andrade Hardy family office, whatever the hell that was. Andrade is so over. He is playing this character so well. He is really invested. The crowd is invested in him. And we saw that when Andrade was holding Mark Briscoe for MJF to wind up with the Dynamite Diamond Ring punch. But Andrade moves Mark Briscoe out of the way and hits what they call the Dia de los Muertos. I'm just calling the better Judas effect on MJF, which the crowd went nuts for. Then Andrade removes the DC MJF t-shirt to reveal a homemade t-shirt that said "fuck Don" and "fuck MJF" on it, which was just great. Even commentators like, we're going to have to do some creative editing on that in the replays. And yeah, they probably are, but it's great. Crowd ate it up. I'm super excited that we're really going to kick off the Andrade and MJF feud in full gear now. Let's get it, guys. I am here for it. So that allowed us to have Mark Briscoe hit the Jay Driller on Jake Doyle, which is exactly how I called this match ending when I started my write-up on it. And now, congratulations, Mark Briscoe. You have a title shot at MJF when you want it. And in the post-match interview with Renee Paquette, we found out when he wants it. He is already cashing it in at this coming Beach Break Dynamite. So we're going to have the Women's Survival of the Fittest match for the TBS Championship. And we're going to have Mark Briscoe versus MJF for the AEW Men's World Championship. Those are two pretty big matches for a Dynamite, even a themed Dynamite like Beach Break. So, again, I will probably do previews of Beach Break leading up to this, but yeah, I'm excited for this. Really, really great multi-man match. I was nervous considering they had just done a multi-man match with all these guys on Dynamite prior, but this was much more unique enough, had enough fun wrinkles in it, enough great spots. This did a great job advancing feuds for people that I would have initially wanted to see singles matches for. So this actually worked really well, despite what I thought of the booking initially. So well done, AEW. And then this brings us to our final main event of the evening. Swerve Strickland versus Will Ospreay in the finals of the Men's Owen Hart Foundation tournament. Wow. I don't think there's enough good things that can be said about this match. I could go through spot by spot and list all of the great things about this match. I'd be here until Thursday doing it. That's how good this match was. Both of these competitors are world class. They have great chemistry with each other. This match got real violent. The bloodletting that was done on both Ospreay and Swerve's side was borderline sickening. This is usually sort of a closer to like a pure wrestling style tournament. Usually, there's no outside interference typically that comes into play here. It's not usually a hardcore or violence based matchup. It's usually just your pure wrestling, very much a mini Continental Classic style. That was not the case here. You had the brutal step whip that Swerve took the brunt of when Will Ospreay whipped him into the steel steps by his legs, and he, Swerve caught the corner of it and bled buckets after that. You had Ospreay bleeding buckets onto the mat on the outside from a Swerve inflicted wound. And these guys just did so many things so well. Um, we even got fun special entrances for both of them. You had a Bane themed entrance for Ospreay and a Lobo themed entrance for Swerve. So some DC comic character references there for anybody who is a comic guy like I am. But I would do a disservice to this match to just start listing spots and saying, "Oh my God, this was great. This was incredible." Hidden blade, big pressure, forearm strikes. You know, Spanish flies, the dead eye, everything that they did was so good and so creative and so interesting and kept you so invested. I won't read any of the copious notes I took during this match. I'm just going to tell you to go watch it. Go watch it and then go watch it again. It is that good. It's such great storytelling between these two with a great backdrop of vicious violence. You could not ask for better. It really advanced Will Ospreay's character really well. It even did a great job of advancing the Swerve character really well, even in defeat. It gives him a chip on his shoulder as being, him touting himself as the most dangerous man in AEW, making him and his opponent bleed buckets and still coming up short gives him something else to fight for in the future and can really lead to a great rematch with Will Ospreay somewhere down the line. Looking forward to it with as great as this match was. Obviously, this shows the more nuance of the evolved Ospreay character with his Death Rider involvement. He's got some more submission-based stuff now. He's got that fighting spirit that's been embiggened, to use a Simpsons word, by the Death Riders. The Death Riders even showed up to sort of help visually motivate him, and that, worked well. I actually liked commentaries aside questioning whether or not that would motivate Swerve more than motivate Ospreay. So I was a really good, what if wrinkle they threw in there too. We end here with a paradigm shift and a Death Rider from Will Ospreay following a buckshot hidden blade, and then ending it with the Tiger Driver of all things, showing that Will Ospreay is not afraid to do what's necessary to get the win for him and advance to All In London. This is just it's the absolute cinema meme, guys. It's chef kiss. This is pro wrestling. Will Ospreay and Swerve Strickland in the finals of the men's Owen Hart is exactly what you want from pro wrestling. It has great execution. It has great storytelling. The in-ring work is fantastic. The violence is incredible. There's a lot of nuance here, a lot of gray areas that are added to. There's a lot of history that's added to. There's a lot of future seeds planted. There's just so much here that works really well. And it's one of these examples where it's pro wrestling at its best. Take the time. If you watch nothing else from this show, watch Will Ospreay versus Swerve Strickland in the finals of the men's Owen Hart Cup. It is absolutely worth your time. Whether you're an AEW fan, whether you're a fan of any other promotion, whether you've never watched AEW before, I implore you, if you are somehow seeing this video in your algorithm, watch Swerve versus Ospreay. So overall, I think the show was a significant hit. There were definitely some matches, as I alluded to early on in the card, that I didn't think really stood out the way I would have expected them to. They were perfectly, another Simpsons word, they were perfectly cromulent matches. Totally fine. But they weren't as good as I thought they could have been, and they didn't really go out of their way to exceed my expectations. However, the back half of the card did exactly that, especially the latter two main events. The 12-man tag was just goofball fun, and it really did a lot to advance storylines going forward. It was just a great time, whereas Will versus Swerve was just wrestling cinema joy. I think this was a very good, not great show that had some phenomenal aspects to it. So please, by all means, let me know your thoughts. Did you share my opinions that this was solid with great moments, but overall just solid? Was it better than you expected? Were you underwhelmed by the show? Thanks so much for watching, as always, for Duality of Wrestling. I'm Christian. I will be back in a day or so with a preview of Beach Rig. Catch you then, guys.